All right, here we go. We're starting it off hot. We talked about rock climbing, free solo, Steve's lower half, and we got Ashley Novak with us today, ready to rock. Stevie, do you want to take the reins here?
I'd love to. Ashley's part of the big three for supplementation that I reach out to.
There you go.
It's the MindStrong Projects page. When Harvey posts something or Nolan, I check that. I take pictures and things and send it to Brian Peters. And I also ask Ashley, how are you in such good shape and what do I have to do to look like that? So, Ashley, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Oh, we're doing all
Good
right.
morning.
It's negative 30. What is it? It's negative 30 feels like today
No
here in
way.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, we got a
Really?
legit temp of -6 today. Legit temp. It's
my-
bad here.
I'm not gonna lie though, you guys got that nice little sauna you've been trucking around. I want to be a part of that.
That's
I would just sit in that all day.
that's Steve's safety. That's Steve's safe place.
That's my safe. I get in there.
Now we're really gonna get him going.
Well, what I do right now
Are you
is
guys
go ahead.
are you guys doing every podcast in there now?
No, this
'Cause
one's
I would
at the
fly
house.
out specifically just to sit in that.
It's a rush. I'll tell you what. And last night I was sitting in the ice, and one of the guys was walking upstairs, and he was mad because he had to get on a plane early this morning. And I said, it could be worse, bud. Your buddies could convince you that sitting in freezing cold ice baths is a good idea.
yeah. In negative, we had a guy in last night, and he said to me, he goes, "Now just see," and he was he's an actual adult, so he's a little bit older than us, and he had said to me, he goes, yeah, he was an actual adult, and he goes, Harv, just so you know, and he's looking after me and the boys, and he goes, it's gonna be really cold here the next couple days. I go, oh, the boys love the extremes.
Oh yeah, we love it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyways, Ashley, before Steve and I could, and I'm sure we could dive into some sauna talks as well, but for people who are listening today, I know obviously Steve and I have been able to follow you a little bit, and we've had conversations in the past and know a little bit of the background of it. But can you, for some substance for the listeners, can you give a little breakdown of what you got going on? I know you're traveling all over the place and doing some things, and we're fortunate to catch you here I'm sure, in your busy schedule. But can you tell some people how your life looks and essentially what you're doing, and then we can just roll.
Oh man, pretty random. So but definitely. So yes, my life is pretty on the go 24/7. I model full time. I've been doing it for 10 years. I have agencies all over the world. From that, with modeling, it's been an interesting career change for me because I grew up being an athlete. Once I went to college with Steve, and then randomly after college, 180 my degree. Like most people, just not using their degree, nowadays.
Oh yeah.
So much for that money. I have a biochemistry degree, and I went into modeling. I got into grad school forensics, kind of just was really not what I was expecting it to be. Kind of stumbled upon this new amazing door that opened, took advantage of it. At that time, athleisure and athletics, with the whole health and wellness movement, wasn't really a thing yet in the States as much as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And, as an athlete, I lost and had to lose a lot of that muscle in order to work in the industry. But in the last, I would say, 6 years or so, it's kind of really transitioned to now being more athleisure. And so I find most of my clients now being more athletic clients like Nike and Adidas and Bowflex, like working for so many different random companies, more in that department, which is amazing because then I could go back to my roots of being an athlete and enjoying that process about who I really am and who I've always been. And so that's been really an amazing and fun part of my career, being able to do that. And so it's been really, really busy, especially since, like I said, this health and wellness
For sure.
amazing part that now society's really implementing in their lives. So with that is a lot of travel. I would say on
A
average,
lot of travel.
Yeah.
a lot of travel. Like sometimes I've had weeks where I've had 2 to 3 red eyes within a week, getting from one job to the next, like by coastal, landing really late at night, getting up really early, and having to be on set, or knowing I have to fly immediately after set So I need to get up even earlier with an early cold time to get a workout in, but I got in late the night before. So it's been an interesting balance in the last few years of between sleep, which is such a huge priority, fitness, and nutrition with, I've learned a lot about myself, and like Steve was saying in the beginning, like learning what supplements and what are some good tricks of the trade for people that live really active lifestyles that still want to be really healthy as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, as I'm going to try to stay on this one because I'm going to try to remember the other ones. But the thing that really makes me the most interested of what you're doing is as you stick around in the industry and you kind of evolve and get better at understanding yourself, what are some of the things that just like very simply, just from my own curiosities, because you have the lifestyle of even like a professional athlete, right? Like you guys are traveling time zones.
Even almost more difficult because hers isn't as scheduled.
Right.
She's just going boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's something I was going to dive into. But so I had a friend out here maybe a month ago or so, and she was doing a shoot here in Minneapolis, and she's from LA. And we were sitting in the sauna, and we were talking about humans have never been able to just travel to different like weather climates. Like she went in LA and then traveled here, and it was 10 degrees and it was 65 degrees there. And then she changes time zones, weather. I mean, above any of the just a part of your sleep, that alone is going to mess with your system, right? So you're going to have climate changing, weather changing, elevation changing, time zone, all that stuff. And then you got to go out and perform. So, I mean, there's got to be times where you're just super groggy, even in your mind, your body feels that. What are some of the things that you've been able to pick up on as you've gotten better in the industry and evolved in it to know your body more?
Well, I would say, in the beginning it was really rough because particularly when I would change the climate. So it's so interesting nowadays we have this like cold plunge and like the, infrared sauna and like the hot and cold difference, which is scientifically been proven to be very helpful. But it's interesting because when my body would switch climates really quickly like that, I would actually get physically sick.
Yeah.
I would, be vomiting within like 24 hours of getting, especially if I went to a hot climate. I had a really difficult time. I have a client down in Medellin, Colombia, and I don't know they're always humid down there. And so when I would be originally from Chicago and go down there, I'd have a migraine within the first 24 hours. It was really hard to be on set. And I think my body just kind of acclimated and got used to it. Like a lot of businessmen that are constantly switching time zones, they just say like, you kind of just get used to it.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helped with just repetition, but then also preparing my body as much as I could the days leading up to it. Like knowing, okay, if I'm going to a higher elevation, I need to be drinking a lot of water on the way. Drinking a lot of water on the planes because and water is such a huge regulatory for humans in general, but especially within myself, I know that most migraines I will get are usually because of a water imbalance within myself. So that's something I've learned, kind of just paying attention to like different triggers, like how am I feeling today? Again, it's all in like the preparation. I started doing IV hydration sometimes. If I knew if it's like during flu season or if I'd be flying a lot, I take a ton of supplements. I literally look like the oldest person on a plane with like 1,000 different vitamins with each day.
No fear. That's your carry-on is pure supplements.
Yes, I swear it's not drugs.
Literally my carry-on. Yeah, and so like financially as well, like airports carry terrible food. It's so funny in 2020 how much we travel nowadays and the accessibility of it, how we still do not see healthy food in any airports really at all. At least I don't. So most of my carry-on alone is just food. So I'm literally stacking in all these snacks that I've already made for meals, and then all of my supplements, all my vitamins. I carry protein powder. For me, it's just making sure that I am a walking pharmacy 99% of the time for anything. And like my own naturopathic doctor, I'm just kind of making sure that I'm staying on top of myself 24/7, as well as like on my off days, making sure that I'm not like binge eating crap food or,
Right.
you know, just getting lazy and that, like making sure that even at my off days, I'm still on with my nutrition and my sleep especially. And knowing that I don't have to, if I have a day before, if I had an off day, you know, we had this hustle mindset, like you got to be hustling every minute of every day. But what I wasn't learning was I need to rest. And so that's when I noticed I was getting really sick. It was when I wasn't sleeping and not feeling guilty for sleeping in like an extra hour that day to make sure that I'm recovering from the days before.
So I feel like we got to give people a little bit of context here in what we're talking about. So if you've ever watched television in your life, you've probably seen Ashley. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is Bowflex.
What's weird about that too is, as you were saying,
and
that
Nordic Track.
And Nordic Track.
Yeah, Nordic Track.
Okay, so what I want everyone to understand is that when she's saying all of these things and these supplements and this travel and this moving, she is not what most normal people would think a model is. She is showing up and working out and training for how long do you usually do these shoots for? How long are you actually working out a lot of the times on these shoots?
So I have a current Nordic Track commercial out right now. It's been out for about a year. And so in this all this, I forgot to throw in. So I also do marathons and triathlons. And so
just an overall badass people.
Let me just drop this in on you real quick.
Well, because I wanted to give it some preferences leading into the story. So, you know, when you're traveling and doing all this, trying to find like set outside goals as far as an athlete can be very difficult. Because when I was training so I competed in my first half Ironman 2 Octobers ago. And 2 days after I finished it, and 2 weeks before that was the Chicago Marathon. So post now, like 2 weeks and 2 days, I am arriving now in LA at that time, and I had to shoot this Nordic Track commercial for 10 hours on a 40% incline treadmill. It's an incredible treadmill because most treadmills only go up to 15%, but the Nordic Track one goes up to 40%.
Good plug.
So yes. So, you know, granted, you would go and you would sprint, you know, and they'd be like, okay, now bring it back down because they wanted to show the elements of it. And sometimes you're lucky where there's other talent on set where you get to rotate so you can get like a second off to kind of take a breather. But like 2 days post Ironman, I was the only talent on set that day to shoot the treadmill, and we shot for 10 hours. The lunch break even got shortened because we were running behind. So
wow.
It was just like, people think like, you know, there are days after you're kind of just standing there doing clothes. But a lot of the times when you're on these athletic shoots, you're literally performing fitness for 8 to 10 hours a day. I was on set in Colombia once. We had a 15-hour day.
Jesus.
I thought I had the flu at the end of the day because my body was just shutting down. I was like, it can't.
What'd you have to do with that
anymore.
one? What did you have to do with that one?
It was unbelievable. The product that turned out from it was all video. So we were kind of doing a variety of explosive and high impact workouts. So a lot of like HIIT training on set. There was a guy I was working with that day, so he was focused a lot more on CrossFit. That's his main thing. And for me, it was a variety of like sprinting, different variations of HIIT training exercises. At the end of all of it, they wanted us to do, muscle ups? Yeah, on the rings. And I said nothing less. Like, we're like, no, this isn't happening. So they ended up cutting that out because we were just dead. But it was an amazing. It was the third most viewed video ever on YouTube in Colombia. So that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Let's go.
Yeah, congratulations. Just a nice little
thing.
Yeah, let's go.
Do you have to do, before you go and do these things, like a muscle up or whatnot, or running for a certain amount of time, is there like physical qualifications, or at this point have you sort of they just know, all right, Ashley is capable of this, we don't have to worry about the physical side of what you can accomplish? Is there qualifications for that stuff?
I would say it's a little bit half and half, more so now, a little bit more than half now. Like now they know like whatever agencies are hiring us from, or now with social media, they can kind of see like what are your interests and what do you regularly do. they will hire you based off of, what your qualifications are. It's like, I have a resume pretty much with my agency, and they're like, okay, like, we need a volleyball player, we need this, we need that. But there are sometimes when I'll show up to set, I'm very well adversed with yoga, but I'm not being a runner. Like, you just have tight hamstrings. So there's like doing the splits for me is not something that comes easily.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll show up to set, you haven't been able to do an hour of hot yoga to warm up your muscles. And they're like, we need you to get into this pose right now. We're already 15 minutes behind. But they didn't ask you beforehand if you could even do the pose.
Wow.
So sometimes you get to that on set. And a lot of the times, some of the clients I work for the athletic division, they don't actually work out themselves. So it's hard sometimes to relate to them, to get them to understand, like, I know you want this picture in your head. However, as an athlete, right now that's not possible, or, it's not picture-wise going to come out exactly how you imagined it. So it's always interesting, the communication that has to be on set between the creative director, the talent, and then the client, to get them to understand the realism, like, is this possible or is it not possible? Or can I do it? Because you don't want to show up to set and be like, I can't do that.
Right.
Like, you're going to put yourself through whatever pain you can do to get into whatever it is that they need. But sometimes that can come as a cost physically. Like, I blew my back out one time from doing one of those poses, from not warming up properly because they were behind and they didn't care. They're like, just go straight into the pose. And I didn't realize until the next day I couldn't move. So, but thus...
Are you ever sitting down like on a couch with a friend and pops up like a commercial and you just know how hard all that shoot probably was, and they're just sitting there drinking their cup of coffee and you just get pissed at them for not paying attention to it?
Or saying the machine looks nice.
Yeah, like, oh, that looks like a nice machine.
What a powerful incline.
You're just like, do you have any idea what she went through? 15 hours of workout right there for that shot.
I just think I have so much respect just being in the world of like video in general, and even being on sets for some movies and stuff. Like, watching even just a 5-minute scene in a movie, it takes 14 hours a day that these people are shooting just for a little scene. Sometimes it just gets cut completely out. So I think just in general, I have a really much higher respect for the film industry in general, because knowing what goes behind the scenes and all the people that it takes to create that one specific, section, I would say I have a lot of respect for everybody that goes into that.
Well, and the other cool thing about you that I'm very curious about is you do all these things and you travel and you do all these shoots, but it seems like you take a lot of time to continue to be like active and like enjoy the process of traveling, enjoy the process of going all over the world and doing different shoots and trying different things. You're not just going there, doing the shoot and coming home. You're going there and you're going and doing fun things. And on top of that, you're going rock climbing. You're being more active even outside of that. How do you find a way to stay active when your job is travel, get there, be active, travel, be there,
or even be active, or even be excited to be active
and
outside of it. Yeah,
I think that's insane.
Yeah,
I honestly respect it so much, because I know how hard it is to be in a area that you're basically performing at all times. And sometimes when you leave that arena, all you want to do is sit down. But it's easy for me to do in Lakeville, Minnesota, because I'm used to this. Mm-hmm. But if you're in Colombia or California or Canada or I don't know, wherever the heck, the moon, wherever the heck else you go, you feel probably almost guilty not going and experiencing that culture and taking stuff in and learning, right?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah. Well, it's like you have an opportunity. I'm grateful to be in the industry I'm in and to have clients that are pretty incredible and, taking me to some pretty awesome places. And so it's like, why wouldn't you take advantage of these beautiful places you're going to for when you didn't have to schedule the flight, like the flight was scheduled for you and you get to show up. And to me, that's kind of like the mindset with anything in life, anything that's presented to you. Like, how are you going to take advantage for it in a beautiful way, not in some sketchy alternative motive way?
Yep.
How are you going to make the best of whatever it is you're in, no matter the situation? And I think that's how I've just always been. And, you never know what cards in life you're going to get dealt. And so we are in a very amazing time. You know, my parents didn't have the opportunities that I have right now. And I honestly don't know if my mom, I don't even know if she was on a plane more than 5 times in her life. So I'm very grateful to be able to go to these places. And I just have always had this hunger and this thirst to see and do as much as possible. And finding balance within that, because staying active for me outside of already being active with work is my way of pleasure. Like, I find peace and joy, and it's kind of my escape from, not escape, but it's like how I bring meditation physically into my life rather than sitting there. Obviously, that's important to do stillness. But for me, like climbing, for example, is it's like a gigantic puzzle piece, and it also looks like the jungle gym on your recess playground. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like I can still be a big kid, and I think too many people, when you become adults, they get so lost in this like hustle mindset that we forget to have fun, and we forget to play and to keep that creative part of ourselves going. And so for me, it's how I stay creative. I think when we think of creativity, people think like, oh, you have to physically paint a picture. But no, you don't. It's not just in art form. It's like you can bring your art form in anything. Like, see, you bring it into your gym, and like how you influence these kids in your community with, you know, going after their goals with baseball and athletics, and you know, like that's how you're creative. And I think people think like creativity just means, oh, I draw cartoons or I do whatever. But for me, being physically active is my creativity, and how can I keep switching up in my life to be able to be creative for myself in that capacity.
That's super cool. I've never heard creativity described that way. I'm serious. That was that made me think right there. I like that.
Well, that's what separates us too, right? Like that's what separates us from, that's what makes us human, is our ability to create things. I mean, it's a super cool thing. And I think what's even interesting too, is you have this ability, because you are exposed to so many different cultures. So you're exposed to so many different creative thinking, right? I mean, Colombia's got to be a different vibe and creation type thinking than LA or Midwest or over in Europe, and just things like that. You've seen all these, you've been exposed to so many different traditions or cultures. What have you sort of picked up from that? Because through osmosis, you're sort of like a melting pot of creations.
Oh, yeah. A crock pot of creations, if you will.
Oh, Steve, nice dropping.
Honestly, like, it's just to travel and to get out and see the world. Like, I come from a little small farm town, and I loved my childhood and growing up there. Like, it was the best place to grow up. But my dad was amazing, and he was always pushing us to get out and see the world. And he had traveled and knew what their because I think we get so, you know, focused and blinders on our sides. Like, this is the way the world works. And it's like, no, there's so many different humans. And I've learned probably most of the stuff I've learned from living in different cultures and having friends from different cultures, and seeing how caring and loving people truly are, and how their viewpoints on life with what they find happiness, you know, in, you know, so I lived in Africa on and off for 5 years in South Africa, and being in a culture like that, like seeing where people are coming from literally nothing. There's no running water in some areas, no electricity. And yes, there are parts of America that you can find that in some very poor towns, but to be there where it's just clay huts and straw roofs, and people are so happy with just the pure essence of life itself and the community that they surround themselves in. And I think we get lost since we're so high tech here, and, you know, we're like connected but not connected. So going out and experiencing these cultures and really getting connected with people, and it really grounds yourself, and you just remember the simplicities of life, and you can bring the flavor of different cultures back into your life. And for me, that's been a really crucial thing. And I just love it. Like, I'm so obsessed with every part of the world. They're so fascinating. And I think some people, because of some unknowns, are terrified of unknowns rather than putting themselves in their uncomfort zones. In the discomfort. and sitting comfortably in that and learning how to embrace it. And I love that because you can learn so much from other people. And a lot of the times you don't even need an exchange of words, even if you don't speak the same language, just from body language and watching somebody and learning wisdom that way can be one of the greatest tools of knowledge, in my opinion.
Powerful.
And watching how people live their lives.
Well, I know you have a question, Steve.
I
That's
do.
what I was talking. Robert Greene. Do you ever listen to Robert Greene at all?
Harv asked me that
No,
this morning.
I haven't.
Oh, it's just it's just only relevant for me and Steve right now because I just brought it up to Steve this morning when we were having coffee together. But Robert Greene talks about how one of the biggest misses now, especially for us in the Western world, is since we have so much stimulation and we just think add more, that we're not able to.
Right.
We're not able to pick up on human emotion. We're not able to pick up on body language, which the way that he talks about it, which is really cool for me. I'm kind of into the evolutionary primal part of it, which makes me a nerd. Steve's looking at me nerdy, but no. But if you think about before there was language, that was how we lived. We lived off people's energy and reading people's body language. So that was really cool to hear you say that because I was talking to Steve about that this morning.
Yeah. We don't even need words.
I know we don't even need words, but sorry, go ahead.
I think that really leads into something that you're passionate about, which you have a very large following on social media, and you should. You run triathlons, you run marathons, you travel the world, you do modeling, you're all over the place, and you're somebody that people should follow because you're very energetic in what you do. But something I really respect about you, and much like you said, learning from others, is you love passing that knowledge on to other people. So you're a very large advocate for not only physical health, but mental health. You're very mindful, you're very aware, you're very down to earth in what you're trying to accomplish. So can you just kind of go in and talk about what's important to me about you is that you use the platform that you've been given to try to help others very often, whether that's through here's how a supplement I take, or here's something physical to go do, have fun. Here's a experience I had. Here's a video. You're very open about not just showing all of the good stuff on your social media platforms. So can you kind of talk about your focus in that and being an influencer?
I would say, I think because social media had gotten a really bad, it can get a really bad rep, and we see it every day with everybody presenting like the best side of themselves, and it's not real. It's not. We got so focused on like, well, we have to be positive all the time, and it's like, yeah, we definitely should be positive, but you have to be real. And I think for me, I grew up in a family, we were so loving, but there's also a very large part of my non-immediate family that's very passive aggressive. And so I think that happens a lot in it's like learning to express vulnerabilities and being able to have conversations about like, hey, like I'm not having a good day today and here's why, or, this has just been hanging on my mind, or this is something I went through. And a lot of the difficult things I went through in my life, I went through at a really young age. And so I didn't have the tools in the moment to navigate through them. And it wasn't until gratefully a mentor kind of just came into my life that helped me learn a lot of the tools I did at a young age to navigate through the hardships in my life. And he had always said, and I loved what he said because he had a difficult upbringing as well. He's like, I got to a point like in my 20s where I'm like, I was angry because I was like, why didn't anyone tell me? Like, why did older people in my life not share with me all of this information that they already knew, but they weren't communicating to me? Or like, why didn't anyone tell me was the biggest line that he ever said to me that I 100% agreed upon. Because I think a lot of people just, like I said, mask the rough parts of their life and the real everyday. It's like even in a relationship, a romantic relationship is not built on your honeymoon stage. It's built on your average Tuesday. So who are you on your average Tuesday when like you're not all done and ready for social media and having a great day? Like, who are you like on your bad days? And I think for me, it's important sharing with those people any kind of knowledge to be open as possible as that, to be an influencer and showing people your vulnerable sides, but then it's something as simple as like a supplement. You know, I have a lot of people asking me questions about stuff like that, and I just want to share because all the stuff I know, I wasn't born with that knowledge. I had to learn it or researched it, and even if it's just one person that you can help out every day to change their life or to give them a little bit of a piece of information. Like, I love Snapple for Snapple facts. So, like, if you can be somebody's Snapple facts, like, be somebody's Snapple facts of the day. Like, give somebody a piece of information that they're like, you know what, that's amazing. My life is a little bit better because now I know that, or you improved my life for this one simple thing. And I think we get so lost in ourselves all the time, and the distractions, you know, like you were saying, how there's so many distractions nowadays. I just want to be as real as possible with people, because a lot of the things that I went through in my life, though the intentions at the time that I had gone through them were to protect, let's say, like me and my family, it wasn't real of the circumstances. So I've vowed to myself to always be as upfront and as open with people about everything and anything that somebody wants to know that maybe I haven't already shared. Like, I'm willing to do that, you know, to have the conversations at least, you know.
That's super cool. That's super cool. I think if you stay on that subject, because think about how many people, as you kind of grow as well, want to have a conversation with you, you know. And so even tailored on you, because that was beautifully said. I mean, Steve and I were sitting over here giving the fist pumps, right? Because we're in, but I think it's interesting because all three of us are in fields where a lot of people do count on us or count on you to be able to supply information. And, you know, social media is a great platform to be able to do that, right? And so if people are on their phones and you have any sort of influence, you have the ability to, what you say is important. And there's probably people who follow you that you don't even know follow you and take your advice, and you'll never even know. But at the same time, how important is it to make sure that you're locked up too? Like, you're locked and loaded and able to be good, because you're giving away all this help, you know, and that can use
that you worked
up.
hard to learn.
Yeah. And so, you know, as you've sort of balanced that with the travel, the ability to work out, to be a professional, and then you also want to give back to all these people. You've mentioned a few times about, I know, getting out in activity and making sure you're in that position of happiness, but also the stillness part of it too. So even tailor it in on the stillness factor. How do you, here's my side where I ask the stillness part.
Yep.
Steve's the high energy ask, I'm the stillness ask. How have you sort of found ways to still yourself, or maybe those days where you feel kind of icky on I know Steve and I talk a lot about it when we have social media days where you want to post because you want people to help, you want to help people, but then you're just not really feeling it that day.
Just don't want any part of it.
Yeah, something like that, you know. And it's a weird up and down. Yeah, I have them all the time. It's super weird. Some days I'm super confident, and other days I go, I don't know anything, and I'm so
some days
nervous.
I just want to delete it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I just want to delete it.
Yeah. So how have you, on yourself personally, how have you balanced that? How have you balanced stillness as well as all the activity?
I would say a large part of that was honestly meditation and learning to really start my day. I think, you know, we have this tendency, every morning we get up the first thing because we don't have normal alarm. I don't know anybody that has an actual alarm clock anymore.
Yeah.
So we all use our phone, and then naturally you're going to see notifications or whatever on your phone, and then you're distracting yourself, and already, you know, you probably find yourself on Instagram within the first 2 minutes of waking up.
Right.
And already being at that point influenced by the outside world, and you've already lost yourself at that point. So for me, it became a priority to make myself a priority for at least the first, 30 minutes to an hour of the day. And, like right now I get up, I didn't have a shoot today, but I still was up at 5:30 this morning, making sure that I got up, I meditated, I started my day before anybody else was up, and then I went and got a workout in, but to make sure that I'm giving myself that time before the rest of the world gets to me. Or, if you're, like you guys, you have people that you are helping along the way as well, before you lose your sense of your own priorities. Because, I think it's important to make sure that you're putting yourself first. And I think a lot of the times we naturally tend to be caregivers in whatever aspect that is, helping people on social media, helping somebody in your life, in your house. And you forget that part. And that was a big thing with me, is I'm such a giving person that I forgot to give to myself first. You have to fill your own tank first.
Yeah, you do for sure. You also feel, it's like we have this obligation, you know, we have this obligation to think that we have to help you every day, or we have to help these people every day. And that can weigh you down tremendously.
It's very draining. And I think sometimes it's like when you put that pressure on yourself, like, oh, I have to share something today. I learned not to, you know, if it got to a point where I'm like, if I'm stressing too much about this isn't coming from a natural, comfortable place, then I'm not doing it. Like, I don't want to feel this way about it. So then I just learned to start doing it more naturally when I felt like I really was enthusiastic about it, not stressed about it. So that helped with that side of it. But meditation was a big thing, and learning to kind of calm my mind, finding things that were more still. Yoga was a big part for me. Something where I could kind of just shut my brain off from all of the... I'm kind of just a highly active mental person anyway.
Yeah.
So to find a low energy for me was really important. And you learn so much about yourself when you sit with your own thoughts, because we have so many distractions today. Where, like, you're not actually dealing with what you should realistically be dealing with internally. You're just keep covering it over with all of the stuff that is going through your brain, all the stuff you see every day. And so when you really sit with your own thoughts, that's when you really get deep. And that's when you do the real work, in my opinion, is learning to sit with your thoughts.
I've got to ask a selfish question here, because I really like the thought process of, you know, that's why Mart has me on the show as the color guy, you know, because I get selfish every once in a while. But for me, like, what you just described is something that I personally really need to work on. But how do you, and obviously, what's that?
I thought you've been journaling.
I have been journaling. Journaling has been a really big deal for me.
Morning Thursdays.
Slow morning Thursdays is today. When I don't journal, I tend to get a little cranky. But when I wake up and I look at my phone, it's the first thing I look at. And my question to you is my personal lifestyle, on a day-to-day basis, I have in my head about 25 people right now that I need to be ready to answer their questions, like, right when I wake up. And I need to help them, because everyone's on a different schedule that I work with. So it's not like I know I can wait for a certain amount of time to answer them. But then what happens is I get on there, I send my messages. I'm sure a lot of people experience this. They make sure everyone's okay. They text. They check a quick email, and then they open up the media, and then it's 45 minutes later. Did you have to really practice? Because I'm sure you're still checking to make sure, hey, shoot time didn't change. So that's really difficult for me.
Practice.
Yeah,
it's still a never-ending practice, because especially if you have a really busy day at work or whatever it is, and you're like, I'll get to it tomorrow, then you wake up already with that anxiety of like, you know, like, I have to do it right now, you know. But I think it's learning to set. One thing I wasn't very good at was setting boundaries for myself. And, you know, obviously that's a context, like, across all fields. And, you know, so people aren't always going to understand if you look, why aren't you on your phone? Why haven't you responded to this yet? But I had to learn how to be comfortable with it, and it makes me a better person to be around, because then I'm not cranky. And two, I'm just overall more at peace. And it's something, I didn't have a lot of peace in my 20s. And so going into my 30s, it's something that I've really sworn to myself, like, I will only be about peace, and I will only be about love. But I have to give myself that love first. So I literally will not touch my phone or look at it until a certain time. Sometimes I have to tell people in my life, like, you're not going to hear from me until this time every morning.
Sure. Set the standard.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, you have to just keep working on it and routinely try to get in the habit of it. Eventually it'll flow, but as long as you're consistently, like anything in life, consistently finding the routine of it and the repetition, eventually it'll just come more naturally. The people in your life will adapt. As long as somebody's house is not burning down, like, they'll be fine. They can wait another 30 minutes. you know, for you to do what it is that you need to do.
I'm going to apply that.
So I would just,
I love it. I think I got 5 p.m. Saturday through Sunday.
You. You've been doing so much. I'm proud of you, Steve.
Thank you. Well, 5 p.m.
for 10 years, so.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's been awesome to watch, you know, a couple Chicago UIC kids and
spread their wings.
Spread their wings.
Yeah, right.
Spread their wings and go out there.
You know, it's fun to see. It really is. And that's something I need to work on for sure. That's a very good reflective morning piece here.
I have a question for you, Ashley. I've been thinking about this as I listen to you speak, which is really cool, right? You must have had a really strong meditation today because you got some golden nuggets coming out at the boys here. But something that
I'm still learning.
Oh yeah. But as you have learned, something I'm really curious about is I've always found that this is really interesting to hear people's perspectives on, but you've had to take a chance on yourself. You've had to believe in yourself. And I mean, I don't even know the depths of it. I'm sure Steve knows obviously way more than I, but Steve probably doesn't even know the depths of the challenges you've had to tackling your vision or dreams. And I think in any role that someone like yourself has, it becomes very intuitively like creative wise. Like you're thinking, what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing I can accomplish? What am I capable of? And then you're on this platform while you're getting better, you're constantly getting exposed, right? Because you're either exposed over social media, people, your agency, the people who are hiring you, you know, any environment that you go into, it's kind of like no matter what you are feeling or doing or going on in your life, like you have to produce, which I think is ultimately what makes people very good at professionalism. But at the same time, how have you kind of conquered, I'm sure obviously it's a process forever, but how have you enhanced your ability to sustain your confidence?
Well, I would say it's not always consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some days I have where, you know, I think, you know, I find myself like most humans, like you overthink and you're like, is this going to work out how it's supposed to? Like, can I trust that things are going to, you know, the confidence thing, I think it's just kind of, in every situation I've ever freaked out on or ever stressed about, always worked out. Like, no matter if it was in a short amount of time or it took 2 years or whatever, it always worked out. And it was kind of something my dad had always implemented growing up. Like, my parents were like, it'll figure itself out, you know? So don't let it, because I am with my life and how I live my life, it can be, you know, like, yes, I control a lot of it, but I think it was learning to let go of the things that I couldn't control and finding confidence in that and security in that, so more of the unknown, because I can tend to be very controlling with like, all right, I'm going to do this today, this, and this, and then one thing's off and then the rest of the day is off. So keeping the confidence, and whether it was, you know, career-wise, where maybe there's a lull in a year where I was working and it was a slower year and I started freaking out where, oh my God, this is the end of my career, you know, always being ready and willing to have a plan B. But at the same time, I think just trusting the universe and trusting the system that everything is going to work out, and finding the trust in that and having faith in that, and knowing that just that as long as you're putting good energy is going to come back to you. So that's I know it's like, it's not the most straightforward answer, but I think
that was powerful.
It just takes a lot of work. It's a daily practice for me. Like there's weeks and days, you know, like the other day I was having kind of a moment of like, worry and kind of doubt for the future. And then I have to get ahead of myself in that moment and be like, stop it, Ashley. Like, you don't have time for this. Like, you don't have time to have like worrying negative thoughts that you don't even know if that's actually going to happen. So why are you stressing about it? Stop stressing about it. Just enjoy the moment. Keep doing you. Keep being you. And everything is going to happen the way it's supposed to. And I know a lot of people have a hard time. Oh, it's such a cliche thing. But like, I've been in really bad places in my life, and I've been through really difficult situations, and it still worked out. As much as it's hard to see past the hill or the mountain, there is another side to it. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
just a wall and that's it. And there's always a way around it. So I think people just get lost in looking up and they just get lost in that and they don't even want to try. But it's just, you just got to keep pushing forward one step forward. It's like when I train people for racing, when you're running a race, like, it doesn't matter how fast you're going, because we're always like, oh, what's your pace? Like, how fast are you running? It's like, who cares how fast you're running? Just cross the damn finish line.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? So just
Yeah.
keeping that mindset of, like, just one foot in front of the other. I don't know how the hell I'm going to get to some of these things in my life that I want to do, but as long as I'm, it's like that whole, what is the book, The Secret, where you're manifesting, and spirituality for me has been something that I've really dove in the last few years of my life. So it's, for me, just been manifesting. I have no idea how I'm going to accomplish this in my life, but everything I know that I'm doing right now and in the past is going to prepare me and lead me up to this point. I have no idea from point A to point B how I'm going to get there, but I'm just going to keep walking, and it's going to form how it should. So,
yeah, that's powerful. I think
trusting that.
Yeah, and I think that's the overarching theme of what you're saying, right? It's almost, if you can see beyond where you're at right now. Obviously, the moment's always powerful, and we'll tee you up for a good question here after this. But it's more of if you can see past the moment and know that this is all okay, this is all good, this is that journey, universal type journey, then it becomes at ease, right? Because you talk to people, it's like Steve and I will always talk to each other about, and we've both been in this situation where you're communicating, you're looking at somebody who is doing something so they just are convinced they can't get out of a hard situation, or they're whatever it is, and you're having this conversation with them and end up becoming redundant or whatever, repetitive. And it's just like, hey, man, if you could just understand that at some point this will end and it'll get better, but you have to just keep pushing, it will happen. And it's, I think all of us, that's what accountability is. And that's what I think why what you're saying is very powerful for people who are going to listen, because everyone can relate with what you just said. You made it sound something that's so intense. You've made it very simplified and articulated it really well. And I think why we like asking this next part of it is essentially going through the Diamond Series, but you think of it as, well, in the moment, there's always an ability to have a purpose, right? Or your why, if you will. And so we sort of try to narrow that down into how you identify with yourself, how you serve others, and then maybe most importantly to us is, what are you willing to struggle for, right? And you've talked a lot about family, your visions of yourself, and your health, and all these sort of things that you're willing to struggle for, which is really powerful. But something that will always evolve, right, is our purpose. But for right now, in your life, how do you articulate or kind of bring to life what is pushing you forward in the moment, purposefully?
Can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly.
Yes. So essentially,
I think we were all starting to get deep into our own thoughts there.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
I know.
I know I did. I did, because when he asked me, I said, thank God he didn't ask me that, because I was thinking a lot.
Yeah, no worries. Well, essentially, in the simplest way, it's, what is your purpose in the moment? What is keeping you moving forward in things that you either identify with, how you serve others, or what you're willing to struggle for? Does that help?
Yeah, I think right now it's kind of in this place in my life where it's telling my story. So if you follow me on social media, you kind of would be seeing like some of the things in my life that I'm starting to open up about and kind of share what is driving me right now. Kind of the whole, like talking about things in my life that I know are very, very, very common in most of America. And I didn't really have a support system when I was going through what I went through in my life. And just to build community for me is like a big drive in my life right now, and a purpose that I'm seeking. And I feel intuitively is like to help others get through something that seems utterly impossible. And, there's so many like spiritual gurus and wellness gurus out right now that it's almost so much information that that is accessible, which is incredible, but you'd actually be surprised how many people don't actually utilize all of the resources that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, whatever audience you have and whatever platform you have, I think, for me, it's like, I kind of have an idea of I have an idea of the audience that follows me. And so it's just even directly communicating with them, you know what I mean? And helping them get through whatever, even if it's just like a girl the other day was like, hey, like, can you send me an arm workout for my arms? Like, my mom, I know that she's got 4 kids and, like, she doesn't have a lot of time in her day. So for me, it's just being accessible to people right now is where I feel a purpose in serving others and just really giving a lot of that part to myself. Is this answering your question?
No, you nailed it. I mean, you're a servant of people. I mean, you've taken what you've done and you constantly strive to better yourself so you can help others. I think that's extremely cool.
One, it's a learning process for me. Like, even though I think what people think sometimes too is the person that's delivering the information, a lot of the times whoever delivering the information is also learning about what they're delivering and feeling within themselves while they're going through it. So it's kind of, I think it's a win-win for both sides. Like, you don't need a PhD in family trauma if you've been through family trauma. You know what I mean? If you've done the work yourself and you've, had mentors and people in your life guiding you through it, and obviously you've gone through therapy. But if you're sharing your story and maybe there's parts of your life that you thought you healed, but while you're talking through it and helping others, you might have like a light bulb moment and think, oh my God, like I thought I just learned this that I didn't really see clearly on, and now I see even clearer on it. So I really help by serving others. You're also obviously serving yourself, and you're just spreading love, giving love, and internally, for me, that fills my love tank. And so
I think
it's a very interesting process. Like, I'm learning a lot through it, and I'm still working through it, which is why this kind of sounds a little bit
your answer,
because I'm still exploring.
The fact that you're working through your answer describes who you are perfectly. You know what I mean? You're constantly working. You're such a learner. You're not even willing to talk about the things that you're super good at sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like you're...
Yeah, well, that's literally my drive in life is learning. And, like, I don't understand why I have a so my community of people that I love to draw myself with is, like, the people who have a drive like you guys where you never stop learning. Like, you're constantly asking questions. My mom said, like, out of the womb, literally one of the question I always asked as a toddler that I wouldn't stop asking was, what is that? What is that? What is that? I would ask that about everything. But it's been interesting as I get older is also learning the other side of that. It's just to observe, like not always asking, but observe, but also finding the balance of both and being able to use that and learning to ask questions and to not be afraid or intimidated by somebody might turn you down or laugh at whatever it is you're asking about. But if you don't know, you don't know. So, that's such a drive for me in my life is to learn, which is the premise behind of all of the activity I have in my life is constantly wanting to learn.
Yeah, I think
because
that's
it's amazing as humans.
Go ahead.
What do you guys think? Here's a question for you guys. We only use, 10% of our brains. Could you imagine? Yeah, exactly. Some of us less. 100% on that. But could you imagine, like, the capacity, the abilities we would have if we used more than 10% of our brains?
Go ahead, Mark.
Unreal.
Go ahead, Mark.
What do you guys think?
Well, that's
MindStrong project.
Toss it over to me, Steve, on that. No, that would be amazing. I think one of the coolest things and I'll answer that, but I think one of the coolest things that you mentioned, and I don't want it to be overlooked because we've talked a lot about learning, right, and asking questions. And I think it's important when we are using resources to know that it's not even like it's not that person, right? That's just what that person has understood to be able to share, right? And so when we look at, I always try to urge people when you're listening to a speaker, like you're not looking at that person as that person's super smart. You're looking at that person as this person has gathered so much information that they've been able to format it in the position of handing over a gift to you. And then you're trying to articulate that gift, right? And so it's one of those things where we could look at social media all the time, and we're humans, right? So think about our brain capacity not growing past the 10%. Well, it's because either A, I just think it's super simple to just gather information. You know, me and Steve talked about it this morning. I do a, maybe this will answer your question, but I do a weird thing for myself. I don't think some people know about this, but before I tweet, sometimes I'll usually tweet like my thoughts or my reflection. And I always do that for me. And I tell people this a lot is I'll send out the tweet to a group of like 20 to 30 people. I'll just mass text it individually. I'll copy and paste it. And I want them to give me the feedback. And then I always sort of track what people give me feedback from. And I can say the same words to 30 different people, and it's usually around 50% of the people completely disagree with me, and 50% of the people think it's like genius, you know. And I always think that it's really interesting. I just do it for myself. But to your point of like the brain capacity, it's weird because my answer to that would be everyone's genius is on their own, because everyone sees things entirely through their own lens, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, well, I can give you the same exact sentence and two people see it or hear it or read it the exact opposite way. So now you'd look at, well, you've said this a bunch. We're in front of all this information. How do we utilize it? Well, you have to reset. You know, like you have to articulate all the things you're hearing. Like you nailed it. Well, I don't need to be a PhD to understand family trauma if I've had that in my life. Or if you've studied it but never experienced it, we could have a conversation and never come to agreement. Does that make sense? And so when you talk about like our brain capacities, it's kind of your own individual duty as a human to expand that. And I've always thought it's interesting because all of us are accessible to all of the knowledge on the planet, but then how do some people understand it better? Do they understand it better, or are they just better at sounding smarter? You know, like there's a lot of things. You want to get into the question rabbit hole? I ask Steve.
Oh, boy.
I ask questions all the time on this, but that's kind of my thinking is, you know, everything you're saying, and you just said it very clearly, and I didn't want that to be overpasses. You know, it's like you have you, Ashley, you're going out and crushing it and learning these things, experimenting these things, learning these things, and you're trying to improve on your own. And then on the part of that, you're supplying a phenomenal piece of information and resources to a bunch of people. But what's important is that those people, they apply that to their own life and expand their own brain capacity. And that should be their duty and our duties. I think that would be my answer to it, if that makes sense.
And I loved it. And it's interesting too, while I'm like reaching out to the community that follows me, when they share their stories, there's never a time where I haven't learned something from them.
Yeah.
Where like they'll present, like you said, something that I said, they present it in a slightly different way, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was amazing, like the way you said that. Or to expand upon something I said, it, you know, like a lot of these people that are in the limelight of you know, giving advice and stuff like that have made it up to the top, it's all recycled information.
Yeah.
It's just through the mouths and different experiences of other people. So it's very, like you said, it's very fascinating. And I love that you use the word lenses, because for me, all of 2019 was learning to take the lenses that had been put on my life by family, friends, society, experiences. And it's all been about taking all of those lenses off to see it with clear of my own eyes and get back to, okay, who am I really without everything I've been through, without the judgment and stereotypes and all that other stuff. Like, who am I? And let me get back to the basics of me and what I really am, what I stand for, and who I want to be. And I think it's hard. And that's where sometimes, like you said, those differences, because everybody has different lenses of whatever experiences and whatever family they grew up in. Everyone just sees it through different lenses, whether it's foggy, clear, dark, blue. You know?
So it makes us all geniuses and unique. What were you thinking, Stevie? You're
absolutely.
in there. Steve's swimming laps in his dome right now. I can see it through his eyes.
I was just doing a lot of thinking, you know. Which is the whole reason I like being on these, that I push to always be on these. And my message
It's
to
good,
wrap it
isn't
up.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
love what you guys are doing. I think it's fascinating.
That's
It's
awesome.
incredible.
Well, I'm about to lay
really
a gold
do, like-
nugget on you, Ashley. You ready for this one?
Yeah, tee it up. Tee it
Yeah,
up.
bring it on, Steve.
If
Lay
we're
a
only going
golden
to use
nugget on
10% of our brains, we sure as hell better use 100% of our hearts.
Oh, the old ball, Steve McGuigan.
Yes.
Take her home.
Beautiful.
Take her through your base.
Was
Well,
he just like antsy, like ready to get at the mic for that? Like I could just see him sitting there, like.
Oh, I was gonna
That
try
was
to.
beautiful.
I was gonna try to make sure Steve couldn't get that out. I knew that was coming at some point.
if we're going to use 10% of our brains, folks, we better use 100% of our hearts.
100% of our hearts.
Oh, that's funny.
I love that. Steve, you have a huge heart, so you definitely do that.
Thank you. I appreciate
That's why you
that.
can't do pull-ups.
That's
You
why.
can't-
Well, you.
Not only does he have a big butt, he's got a big heart.
Yeah.
That's right. The big two. That's what I call them. The big two. Oh, you've been awesome to listen to. You've been extremely influential and inspiring to the entire MindStrong project. Just watching you go and watching you push. So, our final question is just, what's next? How do you move forward? Give us that answer. Give us your whole 100% of your heart in this one, and what are you doing moving forward?
Ooh, heavy. I guess it's like just done with it. Obviously
It can be that simple.
Yeah.
Honestly, like right now, I think it's when it was the new year, people were asking me, like what do you have in mind this year? And I threw in a few things that I had thought about last year and doing this next year, but like I'll just give you an example. For example, I was looking at going to grad school right now for a doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. It's kind of something I'm throwing out there, but the biggest thing for me, that wouldn't be until the fall, but the biggest thing for me now is just making sure I keep an open mind, because anything can happen tomorrow where that can influence that and change that. And, I don't want to close any, decline any doors that might be opening along the way. So right now I'm just finding peace, like going forward and just learning to trust the universe and trust the process, and just keep working on myself every day to be the best version of myself, to make sure that every day I'm, living that and being true to that and not being hypocritical. Like a lot of people are, we can give great advice, but we can't follow it. So making sure I'm staying true to my word to myself and helping others along the way, and really finding a lot more this year in serving others. Just being like you're saying, just as simple as it is, just putting those goals out there, but knowing that everything that I'm doing day in and day out is leading towards something greater, and just having faith in that in general.
Nailed it.
So
Hit it out of the park.
yeah.
Home run.
Yep.
No, that's
that.
what a fun conversation. I was about to say fun little conversation, but that was a big conversation.
Oh yeah,
we
had some thinkers.
Yeah, that was a really fun conversation, and I had no idea. That's what makes the podcast fun, of just press and play. I really think that's what makes it fun, because you never know where it's going to go, and that was really fun. So. From my half, and
thanks for having me, guys.
yeah, I was gonna say, Ashley, thanks for jumping on with us and giving us your time, for the busy schedule, and jumping on and dancing with us. I don't know why that just felt right to say dancing.
We have been dancing.
Yeah, so it felt good to say. But thanks for joining us and giving us away your time. That was really cool, and I think it's really funny. I was thinking about this early in the podcast, but you touched on airport food not being healthy, and all I could think about was A, I agree with that, and B, I feel like I always see your commercial in the airports. I don't know why.
There you go.
I wanted to say that, but then we started getting into it. So
I'm just trying to plant the seed. I'm trying to plant the seed. Maybe somebody in the airport administration will be like, "Oh, we need to get a treadmill in the airport." Like, I don't know.
And know how hard these people have to work to get the shot.
yeah, I know. I'm going to be at the next airport flying. You guys don't even get it.
Are you not even watching the commercial?
No, that's amazing. But no, thank you so much for the time. We'll I look forward to getting this out there and sharing with people to listen to this. This will be really cool for a lot of people to hear. And I think it also, what I've realized recently for a lot of people we've been able to speak to, like yourself, you do a phenomenal job of demystifying all these things and just being a human. which I think is super cool to hear. And I think we're doing better about that as just a whole. I really do. I think as we move into 2020 and as we move forward as just humans, I think we are starting to all come to grips and go, all right, what just happened here? Let's slow it down, get back to the basics here. And you did a great job of demystifying things and being a human. So that was really fun to listen to. And I know Steve will kind of have the send off, but from my end, thank you so much for talking to us.
Ashley,
Absolutely.
short and sweet.
Sure.
Keep inspiring others. You're doing a great job. We'll keep following you. And let's just keep pushing the human race forward. 100% of our hearts, 10% of our brains.
Absolutely. Big hugs, baby. I love it.
All right, Ash, thank you.
By the way, Steve, at the end of this, I expect you to be able to do at least one pull-up after this.
All right, I'm gonna
We'll send a
send.
video.
I can do at least
Get the
4,
video
and
out.
if I'm on video, I think I can get 6.
This guy.
There we go. I love it. Well, you guys take care, and thanks again for having me on, and I love what you guys are doing, and keep shining your light.
There you go. Absolutely. Have a good day, Ashley.
Thanks. You too, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.